Hello, nerds for humanity. We've got a special episode today. You know, there's so many of my MAGA friends and family who are keen on asking me, hey, how can you support Harris? She has zero plans. She has not a single policy. How can you even think about supporting her instead of Donald J. Trump? So, well, it turns out that if you go to the Harris website and do your research, you'll find that she actually has over 40 specific proposals. We're not going to go over all 40 today, but I'm going to do my best at highlighting some of the major ones. So if you want to check it out for yourself, you go to KamalaHarris.com, and then there's an item here that says issues. So when you go to the main website, you click on issues, and then you scroll. And it turns out that each of these issues you can expand, and it provides quite an amount of detail. And it just goes on and on and on and on. So if you have friends who are undecided, who are like, I just don't know what Kamala would do, well, you've got two options. You can give them a link to this video because I'm going to summarize it for you. Or you can just send them to KamalaHarris.com and ask them to click on issues, and all the details right there. There's even details on healthcare, not a concept for a plan, but an actual plan. Wouldn't that be cool? So without further ado, I have some slides that I put together that summarize what I think are some of the biggest issues. Let's take a look at it. And it's fun to see. I know I'm going live at an unusual time. I had a break between some work meetings, so I figured I'd do this. And I was going to do it this evening, but I've got a track meet I have to go to cheer on my son, so I didn't want to be late for the evening stream. So here we are right now. Let's get into it. What exactly would Kamala Harris and Tim Walz actually do? I have slides for you. All right, so let's get into it. Specifically, and let me see if I can make myself a little smaller here. Hold on. Nope. Maybe that one. That's probably the best I can do. Let's see. Oh, no. Maybe this one. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So let's start with economic policy. So she would have a minimum tax on billionaires, meaning that if you're a billionaire, you would have to pay at least 20% on your income. You know, you'd keep 80%, but you know what? If you're a billionaire already, I've had many years where I was paying well more than 20%. So, and I'm not a billionaire, so I don't see why the billionaires should have a big deal with paying 20%. The second one is expanding the child tax credit, which is probably one of the biggest things to reduce child poverty in the Biden administration. And you know, if you like UBI, it's kind of close to that, closest thing we have right now. Climate jobs, so supporting clean energy investments, and then raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour and having paid family leave. So, you know, those are pretty good ideas in my opinion, if you want to see the economy grow but also be fair. And I think the other thing that you'll see in this one is that by rolling back some of the Trump tax cuts for the rich, you could actually get closer to balancing the budget, which nobody talks about these days. You know, even Harris-Walz, I don't feel like they don't talk about it enough, but you never hear Trump talk about it. I mean, every week he's introducing new tax cuts, but nobody ever asks them, like, how are you going to pay for the foregone revenue from these tax cuts. And I think what Trump says is, I'm going to eliminate the Department of Education. So how much does the Department of Education spend per year in the federal budget? The DOE spends $70 to $80 billion annually. What percent of U.S. federal budget is that? So that's 1%, 1.27% of the federal budget. So anytime you hear Trump say he's going to cut hundreds of billions of dollars or trillions of dollars in taxes, and he's going to pay for it by eliminating things like the Department of Education, just know that even if you did eliminate the entire Department of Education, that would be less than 1.5% of the federal budget. So, but let's get back to Kamala policy. So that's her some of the themes of her economic policy. You can see a lot more detail about her economic policy on the website around cutting taxes for middle-class families, making rent more affordable, supporting more small business growth, taking on bad actors and bring down big pharma costs, bring down the cost of healthcare, protecting Social Security. So she has a lot, but some of the highlights are raising taxes on billionaires, helping out middle class with child tax credit, investing in renewable, sustainable jobs, and having a higher minimum wage. Okay, what else? Immigration. I know everybody feels strongly about that. So she supports comprehensive immigration reform. She has agreed to sign the bipartisan Senate immigration bill, which would have increased border security, increased border patrol staff, increased the efficiency of the asylum review process, implemented new technology to secure the border humanely, reform the visa programs for workers and students, and also protect immigrant workers from exploitation, and making sure that employers aren't taking advantage of undocumented workers and documented workers. So, it seems like a more balanced approach. Now, you could for sure say, hey, how come more wasn't done on immigration under Biden? Kamala was the vice president. She wasn't the president. So expecting Kamala to, have done all this stuff as the VP is kind of like saying, well, if you're a Trump supporter, do you credit Mike Pence with all the good and not good that Trump did? The VP role is important, but you're not running things. So as a former prosecutor, I don't think Kamala is averse to enforcing the law. That literally was her job in the past. As the elected Attorney General of the state of California, arguably one of the most powerful and important states in the union. Okay, so that's immigration, comprehensive reform, path to citizenship, but improved asylum process, improved border security, and worker protection. Healthcare, so she has a plan, not the concept of a plan, and that plan includes lowering premiums, expanding Medicaid, and closing any coverage gaps through improvements to the Affordable Care Act, increasing access to mental health services and funding, empowering Medicare to negotiate more drug prices, which would then reduce drug costs for seniors, and then strengthening the federal readiness for future health crises. So we know how Trump handles health crises. He says that they don't exist, or talks about bleach, or that it'll burn off, or brags about Operation Warp Speed, but then hides the fact that he and his family got vaccinated because he doesn't want to offend his base. Accessible, affordable care sounds good to me. If you want that, you got to go with Harris. Now, I will reserve judgment. Donald Trump has stated publicly that he will be releasing his Trump Care plan, which he says will be cheaper and better than the Affordable Care Act. And he has announced back in 2015 that plan will be coming in the next 2 weeks or in a short period of time. So we'll wait to see more details on the Trump plan when it's ready. Okay, the next issue is around reproductive rights and women's health. I mean, this one's pretty clear. If you are in favor of women having the right to choose whether or not they carry a pregnancy to term, there's one candidate who supports it, and there's another candidate who brags about overturning Roe v. Wade. Harris also believes in the need to expand postpartum care, as well as making sure women and families have support in terms of child care and other resources to do well. So this one is like, now Donald Trump says that nobody knows women better than Donald Trump, and nobody's a stronger supporter of women's rights than Donald Trump. Guys, I'll let you decide if you think that's credible. But I think if you support freedom and women's reproductive freedom, you got to go with Harris. Next, foreign policy. So Harris is in favor of strengthening partnerships like NATO. She thinks that NATO's a good thing that brings stability and serves as a counterbalance to potentially bad actors. She is a supporter of standing up to dictators, supporting global human rights initiatives, wants the U.S. to be a leader in international efforts to prevent future pandemics, as well as a leader in climate accords and efforts to reduce carbon emissions. So I think the Trump policy is to defund NATO, to allow Russia to keep all of the territory in Ukraine. He praises Xi Jinping as saying, he's a great leader and he did a great job during the pandemic. I think Harris would stand up to a lot of dictators in a way that I think if those dictators just give Trump some praise and talk about how big his crowds are, like he seems to be very manipulated like that. I don't think Harris would be. That's my view. But from policy point of view, if you think NATO and Paris Climate Accords, cooperation with World Health Organization on pandemics, like if you think that's good, then Harris. If you think that no, America should, retract from participating in the international issues and should not take a position, or just let the strong dictators do whatever they want as long as it's not near us, then Trump's probably your guy. I would also say I think Harris would probably have a more balanced position on Israel, Gaza, Israel, Lebanon, Israel, Iran. For sure, she has stated very clearly that she absolutely supports Israel's right to defend itself. But she has said that the way it defends itself matters. And, and there needs to be a two-state solution, which I think Trump's position is more like pretty much whatever Bibi Netanyahu wants, we'll give it to him. Okay, crime, public safety. Harris is in favor of efforts to prevent further gun violence, banning assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, universal background checks for gun buyers, closing gun purchase loopholes, reforming police, as well as strengthening accountability of those law enforcement activities, federal funding for body cameras, for badge cams, and establishing national use of force standards. So pretty specific, given her background as a former prosecutor, I think she can try and help us find some middle ground between, having law and order, but also making sure that that law and order is accountable, fair, and applied equally. If you want Trump, that probably means you're not in favor of more restrictions on assault rifles, or you don't believe in background checks, or maybe you're not a big fan of badge cams and things like that. Education. Now, this is where I actually personally disagree with Kamala on some things. Like, I would prefer that rather than student debt relief, that money went to apprenticeships, trade schools, community colleges. But you know what? Like, you're never going to have a candidate where you agree with everything. And the purpose of this video is for me to tell you what she has in her plans. That's the main purpose. So she does support debt relief efforts, as well as increase in Pell Grants. That's grants for lower income people to attend college. Investments in historically black colleges, tribal colleges, other minority serving institutions. Wants to expand registered apprenticeship programs to 1 million, universal pre-K, affordable childcare, and big investment in public education to improve K through 12. If you're Trump, I think he's proposed eliminating the Department of Education and relying, just letting the states kind of make their own calls on how they want to educate their residents. I think it's important for the country to have standards and have areas that we invest in, but if you don't like any of this stuff, then maybe Trump's your guy. But if you think these are good ideas, then you got to go with Harris. Okay, the last thing I wanted to share, so we talked about economy, middle class tax cuts, raising taxes on billionaires, and rolling back some of the Trump tax cuts for the rich. We talked about, let's go in order, comprehensive immigration reform, border security. Then we talked about strengthening the Affordable Care Act, letting Medicare negotiate more drug prices to push the prices down, investing in readiness for future health crises, reproductive health, women's right to choose, supporting NATO, supporting human rights, supporting organized efforts around climate, as well as future pandemic prevention. We talked about assault rifle ban, universal background checks, body cameras, national use of force standards for law enforcement, reducing student debt, increasing investments in apprenticeships, universal pre-K. But now let's talk about the two individuals. This is less about policy, but more about who they are. Trump will be 82 if he gets reelected by the time he leaves office. There's a good chance that J.D. Vance would be president. before Trump's first term ends due to Trump's, risks around his age. I mean, he'll be a 80-year-old man, and he's not super healthy, as I think we can all see. Whereas Harris is 59, and she's got a lot of energy, and she's got a lot of enthusiasm, and she was a state attorney general, a U.S. senator. She's a current vice president. Like, she's experienced and under the retirement age. They have different types of accomplishments. Trump cut taxes mostly for the rich and blew a hole through the deficit. In fairness, the USMCA, I actually think, was a pretty decent trade bill that he negotiated. So, he doesn't talk about that as much as other things, but I'll give him credit for that. With Harris, she's done a lot of criminal justice reform, advocated for climate action, cast the deciding vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which had record investments in energy production in the U.S. So, but vice presidents, like I said earlier, they don't do a whole lot. So you can't really judge Kamala entirely on that. But I think you can say that, well, she was a U.S. senator and she was a state attorney general. Those are pretty big deals. And then controversies and strengths. Trump, he's been impeached more than once, been convicted of multiple felonies, but he's unforgettable. The guy is definitely very memorable. And Harris, she's got decades of experience in the law and in government, and she's not Trump. Which is probably one of the biggest things. So, yeah, let's make sure if you found this useful, do me a favor, make sure you're registered, make sure you have a plan to vote early, and if you can, volunteer, because we only have a little over 30 days before the big one, and every day is going to count. So that is my summary of all of her campaign policies. Now, since some of you are here live, I want to do a little bit of an update on the latest polls and betting odds. So if you want up to the second state of the race, just hang on. Before I do that, I do want to thank the people who make this channel possible, which are our channel members. So if you're watching this through YouTube and you want to see more content like this, click the join link and it'll help me pay for the streaming software, the podcast hosting fees, that kind of thing. The other thing you could do is you can subscribe to the the Nerds for Humanity Substack. I'll take it. Just so if you don't know what Substack is, it's basically like an email newsletter. So like, as an example, over the weekend, I did this 1 hour and a half panel discussion with supporters of Trump, Harris, and Oliver. But then the Substack kind of summarizes it in text, quotes some of the key moments, draws some key insights, and that's all available to you through nerdsforhumanity.substack.com. And even this live stream right now, you can see the AI written summary shortly after. So check that out. Now, let's thank our channel members, and then we'll go to the polls and betting odds. So the biggest channel members in order of support, we will start with Soldier One, who is a cabinet member. I have different members based on the level of support. So we'll start with Soldier One, who has been supporting this channel for a very long time, and he is one of our biggest supporters. Been with us for 4 years, over 4 years. Then we have members of the Nerd Congress, Kristen Slevin, Bike, and Zig PC. Then we have members of the next level down is members of the Nerd City Council: Gene, David, DK, Jack Lego, Mr. History, Mona, Von, Yang, Dean, Galessa, Jay Perrin, Dana, Jason, Daniel, Jeremy, Mickey, Yoda, Jackson, Unkiyu. And then we have our registered nerds, and that only starts at $1.99 a month. And I'll scroll through these amazing nerds who help keep this content flowing. And just so you know, in the Substack now, I also give shout outs to our top members on YouTube. So that's another opportunity for you to get some recognition like you see right here. So that happens at the bottom of my latest Substacks. Okay, so now let's talk about hello nerds. Hello nerds. Hello nerds. Thank you, Rockout. Appreciate that. Okay. Let's talk about the polls. A little bonus content for you for sticking around through this stream. 5:38. Let's see how we're doing, folks. Share. We'll have some going away music too. Hold on. Okay. Let's take a look here. National polls as of September 23rd. That's the last poll we have, is from yesterday. Harris 48, Trump 45. Harris has basically been ahead of Trump ever since July 26th. So, and the gap, it's been roughly a few percentage points. So it's super close. She's only up by 2.5 nationally. We all know that elections are decided by Pennsylvania, not by the rest of us. So let's take a look at Pennsylvania specifically, not a national poll. In Pennsylvania, you have Harris at 48.1 and Trump at 46.9. So only a 1.2 percentage difference, which is very problematic because Trump generally polls a little worse than he actually performs. A lot of people are kind of ashamed to say that they support Trump, and I would say, like, well, maybe there's a reason for that. Let's see, Michigan and Wisconsin. These are three states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, that Trump won in 2016 but lost in 2020. And in 2024, Trump is losing in Michigan, but only by 2 percentage points, 48-46. And Wisconsin, a state he won in 2016 and lost in 2020, he is currently losing in 2024, but again, only by a cat's whisker. 1.8 percentage points, 48.4 Harris to 46.7 Trump. There's some other key states that we should look at, which will only make you even more nervous. So if you are a Harris supporter and you're on the fence of donating, volunteering, voting, like, please get off the fence and support her. Look at North Carolina, 47.7 to 47.1 in favor of Trump. Let's look at Nevada, 47.1 in favor of Harris, but only by a 0.4% margin. Arizona, Trump ahead by 1.2 percentage points, 47.8 to 46.6. Did we say Georgia? Trump ahead by 1.4, 48.2 to 46.8. So, TLDR, we gotta win Pennsylvania. If we win Pennsylvania, that's 20 electoral votes. It'll be very hard for Trump to win, even though he does well in the Sunbelt states. But if you don't win Pennsylvania, then you got to show up in a bunch of other states like, North Carolina, Arizona, that kind of thing. And who knows? Who knows what's going to happen there? What do gamblers think? Let's take a look at the latest betting odds. Gamblers are bullish on Harris, but only 52% chance of her winning. Trump has a 46% chance. And if you look at the trend over the last month, you had one point where the gamblers were thinking that Trump had a better chance in early September. And then he dropped on September 10th. Was that when there was a debate? When was POTUS debate? Is that when he dropped? Let's see. Yeah. It looks like the debate was on September 10th. Okay, that makes sense. So after the debate, the gamblers went from thinking Trump was going to win to thinking Harris was going to win. And they've continued to lean into Harris, but for a little bit of a contraction starting 9/22 to 9/23. And now they have her ahead 52.8 to 46.3. So super close. So with that, hopefully this was useful to you. If you can't become a member, the next best thing you can do is smash the like button and comment and share. As useful as these streams are for many people, they only get like a few hundred views sometimes, sometimes even less. So hopefully you can help me get the word out. I've gone over most of the Harris key policies. I tried to keep it objective. Obviously, I am supporting her, but I tried to give you details and, whether you agree with her or not, if you want lower taxes on middle class, roll back the tax cuts for the rich, minimum 20% tax for billionaires. If you want improving and strengthening the Affordable Care Act and have an actual plan and not the concept of a plan. If you want to protect women's rights, their reproductive rights, the rights for families to get childcare, support more accessible education versus abolishing the Department of Education. These are all, if you want to support Ukraine and NATO and have a balanced policy supporting Israel, but also making sure Israel defends itself in a way that's consistent with international law and human rights, Harris is going to be a much better choice. And if you want someone that isn't in their 80s, that's also Harris. So lots of reasons to vote for Harris. I hope you'll participate, get your friends and family to go out and vote, and volunteer and donate if you can as well. Bye, nerds.